Deadly violence broke out in Chad this week against the new military government. Protesters are angry at the Transitional Military Council, which took power last week following the death of President Idriss Déby Itno. His son Mohamed is the new president, extending the family's 30 years in power.
We're tired of the monarchy in Chad. We're tired of it.
At least 6 people died during protests on Tuesday in the capital N'Djamena and in the south of the country. In a bid to ease tensions, President Mohamed Idriss Déby announced talks.
These values, so dear to our late president, will be demonstrated and enshrined in the framework of an inclusive national dialogue that will be organised during this transition period. I will be the guarantor of this dialogue, which will not shy away from any subject of national interest, according to a precise timetable that the government will be called upon to reveal.
The transition period is meant to last 18 months, followed by elections. The junta dissolved parliament and the government, and have brought back the post of Prime Minister, naming Albert Pahimi Padake.
As Chadians, whether we are from the opposition, the majority, civil society, women or young people, the challenge we face is that of peace. How can we join hands to consolidate peace and stability?
France, which views Chad as its main ally against terrorists in the Sahel region, has pledged support to the new regime. But both President Macron and the African Union leader, Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi, urged a return to democracy in the country.
I gave my support to the integrity and stability of Chad very clearly in N'Djamena. I am in favor of a democratic, peaceful, inclusive transition. I am not in favor of a succession plan.
On Chad, we have perfectly the same understanding. We must very quickly return to democratic order.
Idriss Déby led a repressive government that stifled opposition and bred rebellion. Rebel group the Front for Change and Concord in Chad launched attacks in the north during new presidential elections on April the 11th. Déby died from wounds on the battlefield a week later, on the day that his re-election for a 6th term was confirmed. The group's leader says they are willing to observe a ceasefire, but the junta refuses to negotiate. Military factions have waged deadly gunfights in the Somali capital Mogadishu. Parliament's extension of President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed's rule for another 2 years has sparked the worst political violence in years. The crisis was a long time coming. The Horn of Africa nation failed for months to organise elections before the end of Mohamed's mandate in February. At least 3 people died in the fighting. Up to 100,000 people fled the city, according to the UN.
Armed men, dressed in military uniforms. They came to us at 2:30 a.m. and told us to leave and escape with our wives and children.
After key allies also rejected the extension, Mohamed announced on Tuesday he would seek Parliament's approval for fresh elections. The next morning, a suicide blast outside a government building killed 3 people. Jihadist group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility. Somalia has not had an effective central government since the collapse of a military regime in 1991. Since then, clan conflicts have fueled decades of civil war and lawlessness. Street vendors are struggling to survive Zimbabwe's COVID-19 rules. Spiwe Tembo sells bread buns on the streets of Harare to feed her 3 children.
Life is tough now. I can hardly feed my family. Before, we used to eat 3 meals a day. But now we eat a little for lunch and a bit more for supper.
Authorities banned the activity a year ago and strictly enforce it.
The police confiscate our stuff when they arrest us, and we end up paying a fine to get released, and then we're back to zero again.
But traders prefer to take the risk. The country was already in an economic crisis before the virus struck. COVID has killed at least 1,500 people and infected close to 38,000 Zimbabweans.
Marcel Tsipanda is a custodian of a forgotten music link to the flow and ebb of the DRC's largest mining company. In the mid-1900s, the Jacamine firm was the lifeblood of the Democratic Republic of Congo's mining capital, Lubumbashi, the center of work, health, education, and leisure. Tsipanda, 74 today, worked as a secretary on the mine. On weekends, he was guitarist for young groups paid by its social club to sing and dance for mining communities. And out of this microcosm came a new music style, known as Jekoke.
They bought us instruments, they provided us with instruments, and we would perform on a Saturday, for example. They'd say, there's a town that needs a group to play. They'd send us there, we get there, set up our instruments and play music until the early morning. We came back and the next day we go to work.
Jekoke's sound was inspired by musicians in neighboring Zambia, which was then the British protectorate of northern Rhodesia. That golden age of copper mining coincided with the heyday for workers like Marcel, but it was not to last.
There came a time in Jacamine, I don't know what got into them. The Jekoke was abandoned and neglected. It's like a forgotten treasure.
In 2003, the World Bank funded a redundancy program to cut a third of the company's 36,000 workers. As Jacamine's fortunes faded, so did the performances.
At the moment, we can't afford to buy instruments, for example. If there is someone who could buy us a complete set of instruments, I could form a large orchestra.
Jacamine now banks on cobalt, a mineral in abundance here and key in batteries for electronic devices. Will it pay off for Jekoke? For now, Tsipanda teaches the next generation and keeps his suit ready, just in case.